demonic girlfriend of my housemate wants to kick me out because she hates me and doesn't like me bringing women, but my friend break up with her because is seriously toxic. 2 months ago, I moved into a house with 3 friends from college. We were all trying to save some money, and living together seemed like a good way to cut expenses while we each found better jobs and planned for the future. As for me, I don't have a girlfriend, but it's not like I'm unlucky in love. I've always had an easy time dating girls, though honestly, I'm not looking for anything serious right now. I'm not interested in having a girlfriend for the time being. I just want to enjoy myself and see what happens without any pressure. One of my housemates, Derek, doesn't have a girlfriend either, and it seems like he's also not interested in dating anyone at the moment. He's always been more reserved in those matters, and while I've seen him flirt occasionally, I've never seen him in a serious relationship. Our other housemate, Josh, recently started dating a girl named Jennifer. He brought her over to introduce her to us, and from the moment I saw her, I felt that something was off. Jennifer is one of those girls who seems to have everything under control, but not in the best way. For example, when we first met her, we had barely greeted her when she was already making comments about the house decor, suggesting changes here and there as if she'd been living with us for a while. It wasn't just a casual, "Oh, this is nice," but more of a, "You should rearrange the furniture. It would look so much better this way," as if she knew exactly how things worked in our house or something. Plus, when Josh wanted to grab some drinks for everyone, Jennifer insisted he take exactly what she wanted, saying wine was the most appropriate choice for the occasion, even though he mentioned he didn't like it much. It gave me a strange vibe, like she was trying too hard to control him in a very obvious way. I didn't say anything at the time. After all, it wasn't my relationship, and if Josh was happy, who was I to interfere? However, the next day I talked to Derek about what I had noticed, and he shared my concerns. According to him, Jennifer had made several odd comments about how Josh should behave in certain situations, almost as if she was already setting the rules for the relationship. It was a relief to know it wasn't just me who saw it that way. I decided to stay out of it, assuming Josh would eventually notice these things. I thought it was only a matter of time before the relationship ended on its own. But weeks passed, and they were still together. What was even worse, Jennifer wasn't just continuing to be controlling, but she was also starting to act a bit questionable around the house. Our house has 4 bedrooms, one for each of us, and a shared living room where we sometimes gather to watch movies or just hang out. Each of us has our private space, and the living room is for everyone, as we had agreed from the start. Everything seemed to be working fine until Jennifer started spending more time there. One night, I came home after a date with a girl I had been seeing recently. I walked into the living room and found Josh and Jennifer watching a movie. I introduced my date, Amanda, and I could immediately tell that Jennifer didn't like her at all. What happened next confirmed it. Amanda introduced herself politely, but Jennifer, in a tone that made everyone uncomfortable, said, "So you must be this week's new slut." Not only was it completely inappropriate, but it was also unfair to Amanda. It's not like I was dating different girls every day or having casual flings left and right. I just enjoyed meeting new people, and if things didn't work out, I moved on. I didn't see the problem in that, but Jennifer clearly did. Amanda didn't stay quiet and responded pretty directly. "Are you your boyfriend's slut for the week? Or were you OP's last week?" Things escalated quickly. Jennifer got up from the couch as if she was going to attack her physically, but Josh stopped her before she could do anything. I didn't want the situation to get worse, so I took Amanda to my room to avoid further drama. The next day, I was in the kitchen making myself some dinner when Jennifer showed up. Josh had gone out to get some pizzas for the 2 of them, so we were alone. I greeted her politely, but I wasn't expecting much conversation beyond that. However, Jennifer surprised me when, out of nowhere, she asked why I was dating sluts instead of looking for a stable relationship like the one she had with Josh. I was stunned. I didn't know if she was joking or if she was actually serious. I explained, a bit annoyed, that the girls I dated were not sluts and that I wasn't interested in a long-term relationship unless it happened naturally. I didn't see the need to rush things. But Jennifer didn't stop there. She told me it wasn't appropriate for me to bring girls to the house because it might tempt her boyfriend. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I responded that I had no intention of tempting anyone, and if she was that worried about Josh, maybe the problem was hers, not mine. After all, he was dating her, not me. The conversation ended quickly when Josh came back with the pizzas, and I went to my room to eat. For several days, I didn't have to run into Jennifer, which was a relief. But a week ago, everything changed again. I was in my room with Amanda, having an intimate moment, when Jennifer, knowing perfectly well what we were doing, opened the door without knocking to ask if we wanted her to bring us something to eat since she was going out with Josh. The worst part wasn't just that she barged in at that moment, But that instead of leaving when she realized what was happening, she stood there, waiting for an answer. I had to shout at her to leave, and Josh had to come and drag her out. Later that night, while I was still with Amanda, I started hearing strange noises coming from Josh's room. What caught my attention the most was Jennifer, screaming like she was possessed by some demon. I couldn't help but laugh internally as I heard those blood-curdling screams. It sounded like she was exorcising some evil spirit. If you've ever seen a horror movie, you know what I mean. The screams were so loud that even Derek, who always wore headphones, came out of his room to see what the hell was going on. We looked at each other and just shrugged. I said, maybe Josh has learned something new. The next day, while reflecting on everything that had happened, I started to think that maybe Jennifer was jealous of the girls I was dating. Maybe all her weird behavior was because of that. Perhaps it wasn't just that she didn't like me bringing girls to the house, but what really bothered her was that I didn't see her that way. I decided it was time to talk to Josh and lay everything out on the table. When I finally got the chance to talk to Josh, I told him everything that had been happening. Josh was surprised, but told me he'd talk to Jennifer to clear things up. If he found out that she really was interested in me, he'd break up with her, because he wasn't going to tolerate that kind of behavior. That night, I didn't sleep at the house. I wanted to give Josh the space he needed to talk to Jennifer without me being around. The next day, when I came back to change and have breakfast before going to work, Derek told me that Jennifer had stayed the night, so he assumed everything was fine between them. But the peace didn't last long. He also told me that Jennifer had asked him where I was, and Derek simply told her he didn't know. While I was making my breakfast, Jennifer came out of Josh's room and saw me. Immediately, she asked me where I had been all night. I couldn't believe it. She wasn't my girlfriend to be asking something like that, and I didn't owe her any explanation. Since I didn't respond, she insisted, this time in a louder tone. I told her I didn't have to tell her anything, that it was my business. That seemed to enrage her even more. Jennifer exploded, accusing me of being a bad influence on her boyfriend, calling me an idiot, and saying I should move out of the house. Josh came out of his room at that moment, clearly having heard the yelling. But before he could do anything, Jennifer grabbed my coffee cup and threw it against the wall, missing my head by just a few inches. Josh tried to calm her down, but she was out of control. She screamed that she was going to do everything she could to get me kicked out of the house because she didn't want me living there. Finally, after several attempts, Josh managed to calm her down and asked her to leave. Once she was gone, Josh and I had a serious conversation. I asked him what had happened after we talked the day before, and he explained that Jennifer had confessed she simply hated me, not because she was interested in me, but because she thought I was a womanizer who treated women poorly. She didn't want Josh to see me bringing girls to the house because it might give him bad ideas. Josh tried to explain to her that I had always been this way, even back in college, and that it wasn't something she should worry about. But it didn't help much. Although she seemed to have calmed down last night, it was clear that, as I had suspected, the demon inside her had only taken a break. Now it was back and ready to fight. I told Josh that maybe we should reconsider this whole living arrangement. I didn't want our friendship to be ruined because of Jennifer, and something told me that if we kept going like this, things were going to end badly. Maybe it would be best for me to find a new place to live. But to my surprise, Josh said that wasn't necessary. According to him, it was time to break up with Jennifer. Clearly, she was obsessed with me, and it wasn't healthy for any of us. So now I'm wondering, am I the bad guy for making my friend break up with his girlfriend? Update 1. First of all, I want to thank everyone for their comments and opinions. After reading through them, it's pretty clear that most people agree that I haven't been the bad guy in this situation. Josh's ex, Jennifer, was really possessive and controlling, and as things escalated, it became obvious that having her around the house wasn't healthy for anyone. What makes me the happiest is that Josh finally decided to end the relationship. We were all worried about him, and it seems like he made the right decision, which will clearly benefit him in the long run. As for Jennifer's obsession with me, I've seen all kinds of opinions. Some think she was in love with me, which I won't completely rule out, but it's not the only take I've read. Others believe that what bothered her most was simply the fact that I was dating, and that my lifestyle didn't align with her idea of how I should live my life. And then there are those who think Jennifer just had a desperate need to control everything around her, even the relationships of others. These last comments resonated with me the most, because looking back, it didn't seem so much about me personally but more about her need to control Josh and everyone in her surroundings. Either way, the important thing is that Jennifer is no longer in our lives. That's a huge relief, and honestly, I feel much more at peace knowing I won't have to constantly watch my back in my own home or worry about someone barging into my room at the most inappropriate moments. Josh finally decided to break things off with her, which happened yesterday. As I mentioned before, I knew the breakup wasn't going to be a walk in the park. In fact, when Josh told me he was going to end things with Jennifer, the first thing I thought was, all right, time to plan a little getaway, because if the Kraken is unleashed again, it's definitely coming straight for me. And trust me, if you've been near an angry Kraken, the last thing you want is to be in its line of sight. So, I figured the smartest thing to do was to get out of the house during the process. I didn't want to be the target of any furious outbursts or deal with the chaotic scene that was bound to unfold. I decided to spend the day out, disconnect, and avoid any situation where I could run into Jennifer in the middle of her post-breakup rage. It was pure survival strategy. So, like any good sailor, I steered clear of the storm until the danger had passed. This morning, when I finally returned to the house, the atmosphere was noticeably calmer. Josh was sitting in the living room, visibly more relaxed, and although he looked a little down, he no longer carried the weight of that toxic relationship. I approached him to ask how everything went, and in his usual calm style, he told me that Jennifer would no longer be a problem. Not only had he ended the relationship, but Jennifer had also taken all her stuff. According to Josh, she took it surprisingly well, which left me shocked. But of course, that sounded too good to be true. It turns out it wasn't as smooth as Josh wanted me to believe. Derek, who had the misfortune of being there when everything went down, gave me a slightly different version of events. According to him, Jennifer didn't take it as well as Josh made it sound. Apparently, there was yelling, some drama, and Derek even had to step in at one point to prevent things from getting too out of hand. Luckily for Derek, he doesn't attract Krakens as easily as I do, so he managed to stay relatively safe amid the chaos. It seems that the conversation wasn't just about what had happened with me, but also about other issues they'd already had that we had no idea about. It's a shame that Josh had to go through that, but at least now he's free from that negative influence, and I'm hopeful that he'll soon find someone much more compatible, someone who's already been exorcised from the start. So, with Jennifer out of the picture, the Kraken back in the depths, and all the drama finally resolved, I think it's a good time to say goodbye to all of you. Update 2. The Kraken has returned, and this time, it was thanks to a clever move. I must admit, it was smart. Not that I approve, but Jennifer found a way to come back into our house and in the process, made me look like the supposed villain of the story. But before you jump to conclusions, let me explain exactly what happened. It all started last night. The three of us, Josh, Derek, and I, were at home, each busy with our own stuff, enjoying a quiet evening. Suddenly, someone knocked on the door. I don't know why, but as soon as I heard it, I had a bad feeling. Derek went to open it, and to our surprise, there stood Jennifer, as if nothing had happened. It was a shock to see her face again after all the drama we'd left behind. The first thing she said was that she had forgotten something in the house and needed to get it. Now, let's be realistic. If you move out and forget something, the first thing you do is say exactly what it is, right? You want people to help you find it quickly so you can leave without trouble. But Jennifer wouldn't tell us what she was looking for, which immediately raised red flags. I was sitting in the kitchen with Derek, both of us keeping our eyes on the door, exchanging worried looks. We knew the situation was going to escalate at any moment, so we decided not to intervene for now. Despite everything, Josh decided to accompany her. He probably wanted to make sure Jennifer didn't have the chance to release the Kraken inside the house. And that's when things started to get weird. Josh later told us what happened while he escorted her around the house. He thought Jennifer would go straight to his room to look for whatever it was she had forgotten. But instead, Jennifer headed straight to my room. Josh asked her what the hell she was doing, and she simply told him to shut up. Jennifer knelt down and started searching under my bed. After rummaging around for a while, she pulled out her underwear from beneath my bed. Somehow, this woman pulled out an article of clothing that I had no idea was there. She held it up triumphantly with a smirk on her face and told Josh that she had found what she came for. Then, without another word, she turned around and left the house. This was clearly a desperate attempt to make me look bad. If you think about it rationally, she was trying to create the perfect image that I had somehow been involved with her, and that's why her underwear was in my room. Sure, it could make me look suspicious, but at the same time, it felt like a cliché. Her underwear just happened to be there, conveniently left behind after some imaginary encounter. It's obvious her intention was to provoke an argument, or at the very least, sow doubt between us, making me seem guilty of something I clearly didn't do. It's hard to imagine that she might have planted that underwear there on some previous occasion just to pull this stunt when the time was right. But honestly, after everything we've seen from Jennifer, nothing would surprise me. Luckily, Josh didn't fall for it, and neither did Derek. Neither of my housemates believed for a second that I had anything to do with her. We all knew this was just another cheap trick to try and ruin the dynamic in the house. but it didn't work. We've talked it over among the three of us and made a clear decision. Jennifer is no longer allowed to enter the house under any circumstances. It doesn't matter if she comes back saying she forgot something else, needs to talk to someone, or any other excuse she might come up with. If she releases the Kraken, she'll have to do it outside the house, where it'll be easier for the police or animal control to take care of it. At least this time, we can say she didn't unleash the Kraken in its full fury. There was a slight breeze of chaos, but nothing we couldn't handle. For now, everything seems calm, but I'm not holding my breath. Jennifer is clearly someone who's not well. Update 3. After everything that has happened, I think the odds of Jennifer actually wanting something with me are much higher than I originally thought. At the same time, there's a pretty big possibility that she simply hates me with every fiber of her being and is doing all of this just to ruin my life and cause chaos. Either option seems valid at this point, and with Jennifer, honestly, nothing would surprise me anymore. Her behavior is so unpredictable that anything is possible. This update, however, is to tell you what happened recently. It turns out that Jennifer had been in contact with Josh, which, in hindsight, was a huge mistake on Josh's part. He still hadn't followed the first basic rule of Kraken survival: block the Kraken's phone number. Thanks to this little oversight from Josh, Jennifer seized the opportunity and called him. The first thing she asked was whether I had been kicked out of the house yet. I'm not joking, that was literally her first thought. She didn't ask how Josh was doing, or if there had been any changes in their situation. No, she was only interested in knowing if I, her supposed personal villain, had finally been evicted. Josh, being the calm guy that he is, simply told her no, that I was still in the house. Specifically, that I was probably in the kitchen, eating something at that moment. I suppose he tried to downplay the situation, but his answer wasn't exactly what Jennifer wanted to hear. From here, the call got a lot more interesting. According to Josh, Jennifer started losing it almost immediately. She began yelling, asking how it was possible that he wasn't bothered by the fact that his friend, me, had supposedly slept with his girlfriend. To be clear, not only was this accusation absurd and completely false, but Jennifer's insistence on the topic had already reached almost comical levels. What I respect most about Josh is his ability to stay cool under pressure. While Jennifer was screaming on the other end of the line, Josh, without getting riled up in the slightest, simply told her that, even if that were true, she would be equally guilty. In that case, why would she still be trying to get involved in the life of someone she supposedly cheated on? This is where Josh showed that he's no fool after all. He hit her with a very direct question. What would change if we kicked OP out? How would that benefit you? And that's when Jennifer revealed her true intentions. Instead of responding with something logical or rational, she basically admitted what we had all suspected from the beginning. Jennifer told him that if I were no longer in the house, she and Josh, could get back together. In other words, she was implying that I was the obstacle preventing them from being together again. At that moment, Josh, with admirable calm, trapped her in her own scheme. If I kicked him out, he said, it would be because, according to you, you slept with my friend. So why would I want to get back together with you if you cheated on me? She had no response to that. Her entire plan to make me look bad crumbled in seconds. Jennifer, obviously furious at being cornered like that, started yelling again. But this time, Josh wasn't willing to listen anymore. He simply hung up the phone. We don't know if Jennifer released the Kraken on the other side of the line, but I wouldn't be surprised if she was screaming and throwing things in her apartment. The good news is that, after that call, Josh finally did what we had all been suggesting from the start. He blocked Jennifer. Update 4. There's been another Kraken sequel. Although, to be honest, it's hard to say if it's really a sequel, given how many times the Kraken has made an appearance. Sometimes it's a full-blown release, and other times, it's more of a cameo, with Jennifer as the main star. It's hard to keep track, but this time, the Kraken's appearance was aimed directly at me. It all started when I came home with a date. In hindsight, I should have realized by now that my dates are the main trigger for releasing the Kraken. It seems that every time Jennifer sees me with a girl, it's like the Kraken finds a new reason to unleash chaos. This time was no different, a classic mix of wild shouting and completely misplaced accusations. Jennifer appeared out of nowhere, as she often does, just as we were reaching the front door of the house. We didn't see her coming, but the moment we heard her loud, screeching voice, we knew the Kraken was about to be unleashed. Without much introduction, she began yelling at me, hurling insults at my date. More specifically, she called her a cheap slut. To be clear, the girl I've been dating isn't someone new. It's the same person I mentioned in my first post. We've had several dates, and things have been going pretty well. But for Jennifer, The mere fact that any woman is dating me seems to be enough of a reason to insult her. The funny part is, my date isn't someone who takes insults lying down. She already knew about the situation with Jennifer, so she was more than ready to respond. Without missing a beat, she fired back at Jennifer with something that made me think this relationship definitely has potential. She said something like, "I may be a slut, but at least I'm someone's slut and not a single one." That response left me speechless. I couldn't help but laugh internally at how clever it was, but at the same time, I knew we shouldn't stick around. It was dangerous. The Kraken was already starting to morph into a more intense version, fueled by Jennifer's rage, and things could get ugly quickly. So I told my date we should get inside before it was too late. We moved fast, shutting the door behind us just as Jennifer's yelling became more unintelligible. It was as if the Kraken had taken steroids and was ready to destroy anything in its path. From inside, we could still hear Jennifer, or rather, the Kraken, bellowing outside. We knew we couldn't handle this on our own, so we called the police. To be honest, we weren't sure what they would do. Maybe they'd tell us this wasn't their issue and that we should contact some kind of marine life expert to deal with creatures like this. But either they were the right people to call, or they were kind enough to show up and deal with the situation. I have no idea what kind of arguments Jennifer made when the police arrived, but the important thing is they managed to get her to leave. Sometimes I wonder how officers manage to stay calm in such surreal situations. Josh wasn't home during this whole ordeal. When he got back, we told him everything that had happened. The first thing he did was laugh, like the idea of us surviving another Kraken attack was some sort of achievement worthy of celebration. In any case, the situation has now reached a new level. I'm not entirely sure how the legal system handles marine monsters like this. Maybe there's a special restraining order for Krakens, but that's our next step. Update 5. It's been a year since my last post, and recently I've been getting notifications from people still interested in the Kraken saga. So, I decided to give you all an update on how things have been since then. To start, the Kraken, Jennifer, has disappeared from our lives completely. After the restraining order, we haven't heard a single thing from her. We don't know if she's ventured into deeper waters or found another ship to torment. Whatever the case, we feel lucky. We all came out on top. Sometimes we joke that she's probably chasing some other poor sailor, but for us, the chapter with the Kraken is definitely closed. Josh has made a positive turn in his life. He's started dating someone new, and so far, things seem to be going great. Most importantly, this new girl seems completely normal. No signs of controlling behavior, no sudden outbursts, and definitely no Kraken-like attacks. In fact, it's almost weird, after what we went through with Jennifer, to have such a peaceful presence around. Sometimes Derek and I joke that we're keeping an eye out, just in case a new Kraken awakens within her, but for now, all is calm. Josh is happy, and honestly, we're all relieved that he's finally with someone who doesn't bring chaos into his life, or ours. Derek has also found someone. I'm really happy for him. After witnessing so many emotional storms, it's great to see Derek also have something good and stable in his life. It feels like, finally, after all the chaos, we've arrived at a safe harbor. Plus, it's the first time all three of us have been in relationships at the same time. And yes, I'm still dating the same girl from my previous posts. It turns out that after all this time, she was the Kraken, and she's ensnared me with her tentacles. But I'm not complaining because, honestly, those tentacles are pretty great to be wrapped up in. The only thing left for us to figure out is whether we keep living together or if it's finally time for each of us to go our separate ways. It's been an incredible experience sharing this house with Josh and Derek, but there's a feeling that maybe it's time for each of us to move on. We've talked about it a few times, and while we know it'll be a sad moment, we also understand that it's the end of an era. But when that day comes, we'll always have one thing that ties us together: our battle against the Kraken. It'll be our own personal Vietnam, an epic battle we'll remember for the rest of our lives. I can imagine at future reunions, whenever we're all together, we won't be able to resist telling the story of how we survived. In short, life has returned to normal,